Now, given that The Mandalorian Season 3 finale is just a couple of days away, a lot of fans are really skeptical about exactly how the series is going to come to a close before Jon and Dave send things off to Mando Season 4. We've seen a handful of different fans expressing different, of course, reactions to this season. A lot of fans seem to either hate it or are enjoying it, and basically the finale is really going to be a big deal for Jon and Dave. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, given that Disney executives, including, of course, the CEO Bob Iger, has been very much involved in a recent shakeup between, of course, themselves and the board and exactly where they plan to bring Lucasfilm as a company and how they really want to rebrand it and focus strictly on Star Wars, focusing away from anything related to Willow or Indiana Jones. So basically there's no more Indiana Jones series in the works. That's reportedly canceled and off the shelf. And it's really interesting because we know that there's a lot of things happening between the Lucasfilm president replacement of Kathleen Kennedy in certain scenarios that Disney is currently mapping out right now. We have Dana Brunetti standing by to take over, and there's one thing in particular, one very interesting development involving Jon Favreau as the Lucasfilm president and exactly what Disney is now anticipating. We're going to be going over every single detail related to that. Given that Bob Iger is trying to create his own legacy, he's trying to create a good image of Disney and, of course, of Lucasfilm. That's exactly why they are firing some employees and creators over at Lucasfilm and replacing them with new ones. It's going to take 2 whole years to really kind of clean up house over at Lucasfilm, but it's a work in progress. Now, moving on, with Disney and Lucasfilm now looking for a replacement of Kathleen Kennedy as the president of Lucasfilm, Disney executives and Bob Iger have been going over various scenarios that they can embrace for the future of the company. Now, it's noted that one big conversation that Disney executives are having right now is how they can make Jon Favreau the president of Lucasfilm in a specific scenario. Now, this is described to be their plan if Kathleen Kennedy's treatment of Indy 5 performs well at the box office and they decide to keep her until her contract ends in 2024. Then and only then is Disney willing to make it Favreau as president of the company. Now, the current plan of them right now, however, is Kennedy ends up failing. If it does end up failing with Indy 5, she will be able to actually get fired by this August. They are still prepping to have producer Dana Brunetti to take over at Lucasfilm in that scenario, followed by making Favreau the vice president of that company as a replacement. Favreau has been approached by Disney executives on this plan to mark him as the president of Lucasfilm in a scenario if and only if Kennedy stays until her contract comes to a close by 2024. Favreau has surprisingly had a change of heart in comparison to the past and is already expressing interest in taking that position. Now, let me just stop right here for 1 second. I've said this many times before in the past that I always felt that Jon Favreau becoming president of Lucasfilm was very unrealistic, that it would never even happen. But these are conversations that are among Disney right now, that are going on in a specific scenario. So basically, their plan is to mark Favreau as president only if Kathleen Kennedy does not get fired by this year. If Indy 5 proves to be wildly successful, there is a plan in place, a proposal to give Kennedy a last shot out over at Lucasfilm and let her ride out her last year. Basically, that's the plan. If Indy 5 comes to fail and is terrible at the box office, fan reception is plummeting, if that's the scenario, and she gets fired by this August following the June release of Indy 5, then they actually are going to move forward with the Dana Brunetti plan to have him step in as the Lucasfilm president. So you can see that there's different plans for different scenarios. For some reason we're currently unaware, but that is the overall game plan by the executives, the board, and Bob Iger. Moving on. Now, one thing about this too that I think a lot of fans need to be very well aware of is that In the case that if we are to get Jon Favreau as president of Lucasfilm, and this is a serious conversation that is happening over at Disney, and Jon Favreau has shown interest in the past, he has not shown interest before. And it makes you wonder, is he going to be dialing back on writing these shows? Because we know that Favreau is extremely overwhelmed with Mando Season 3. This is a guy that wanted to extend the script or the writing process, pre-production I guess you could say, a whole 6 months. And basically Disney kept pressing him that they need to get this thing out by 2023. Fans are waiting way too long for a third season. They gave him a deadline. Is that to blame why a lot of fans are complaining about Season 3? Who knows? But could this offer that Jon Favreau is actually considering, could this very well be a sign that Favreau is looking to step aside from writing a lot of stories related to Star Wars, and Disney taking in Dave Filoni as the next big writer for everything upcoming Star Wars? It's possible, it's very possible, but I think that you're gonna have Jon and Dave in the long, run. They're not going anywhere. They're gonna do whatever they can to bring Star Wars back in action. So, anyways, moving on, the only concern here is that they, of course, could very well sacrifice any further show developments being led by Favreau if he becomes president. That would take up a lot of time. And in need to hire a new writer as Dave Filoni's partner, which is the only thing, by the way, that may make this impractical for the Star Wars audience. Dana Brunetti, who is a mega Star Wars fan, is still standing by for Kathleen's firing by this August if Indy 5 comes to be a failure, and that this is Disney's plan. They have two plans in part on how they will replace Kennedy as the Lucasfilm president as a reaction to certain circumstances. Additionally, Kennedy is not satisfied about these discussions and is feeling very frustrated about these recent developments, which is why she's trying to do her best with Indiana Jones 5. Now again, I can see why. She's really trying to up her game with Indy 5. She knows her job is on the line, her legacy is on the line, and this is a big deal. This is why exactly we've heard about a couple of reshoots happening here and there, nothing too major for Indy 5. And a lot of scenes being rearranged and really trying to change the flow of the movie. So basically, Kathleen Kennedy is in this panic mode from what it seems, and is trying to make Indy 5 the best experience possible for release this June. Again, it's coming out in just a short number of months. She doesn't have long, and it's going to take a lot of convincing the audience that this movie is going to be extremely successful. So again, I don't know if Jon Favreau should take that offer if he does end up getting it in that specific scenario. If Kennedy rides out her contract till next year and then leaves, who knows what's going to happen with that, but it's a very interesting conversation happening between the executives as well as the board. Now again, Disney's fully aware that there's a lot of fan backlash. There's a lot of fans out there that do not like Kathleen Kennedy's direction of Star Wars, so that's why they want her out regardless. Anyways, guys, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this below, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.